New media, content worth sharing, brought to you by Umbrellar.
So welcome to the next episode of the Umbrella podcast. It's a glorious sunny day here in Auckland, and I'm joined by what I would consider heavy hitters of the IT industry. Zabeen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for the invite. So just to introduce myself, I am proud Fijian Kiwi and have about 10 years ICT and IT experience around software as a service, infrastructure as a service, backup DR and business continuity services. So currently employed by Freightways Group of Companies, TIMG, the Information Management Group, as the head of cloud sales. So, yeah, really excited.
So I've known Zabeen for a little while. We've probably known each other for about a year or so, maybe
Yes.
a little bit less than that. And probably about 4 or 5 months after I met Zabeen, you were up on the Women of ICT Awards, and I thought that's a perfect opportunity to get some really good insight. I'm joined by two other industry heavyweights as well. So Christine from Microsoft, welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
And Julie as well, Julie Cooper, and fellow Umbrellarite, and works in our partner team. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Yes. So my name's Julie Cooper, and I'm the Partner Development Manager building the channel for Microsoft Indirect CSP. I've lived in 3 countries and worked for Microsoft in Australia and the UK, and came over here for love. So I'm happily back in the Microsoft family in this beautiful country.
And Christina, we're a huge Microsoft partner here, pretty much
Yes.
a major focus. And you're a Microsoftite. Microsoft, what do you guys refer to yourselves as?
Microsoft D.
Microsoft D.
It's a Microsoft D, yes.
Yeah. And you work in the partner marketing team at
Yes,
Microsoft.
I do. So my role is to essentially oversee all the partner marketing, so through partner marketing,
Yep.
and act as an advisor to other partners that are looking to grow their digital competency in terms of taking their solutions to market.
So I've got a question for you guys, which is, how has it got to today where we have to have specific call out for women in ICT? And I think that's something that I was struggling to grapple with over the weekend. I was trying to figure out how we lay this session out. Because like all minority within inside of an industry, it gets called out, which I think is a good thing to raise awareness. But actually, it's pretty shocking that we have to call it out as a piece. So how do you guys think that, we've got to this point where it's absolutely perfectly right that these things are celebrated, but also true equality comes from not needing to create a differentiator, right? So how do you think we've got to that need, and what do you see as changing, and what waves have we made inside the industry over the last couple of years?
Well, I think it is interesting that we actually have to have women in IT at all. With respect, I think it should be called diversity in IT. Certainly historically, being in a male-dominated industry isn't necessarily just a problem. It's also a differentiator for us. So certainly in the UK as an Australian, working in a male-dominated industry was an advantage for me. I do think it's important for us to support all forms of diversity, whether that be, race or disability or whatever. So it isn't really just about women, but these forums give us the voice to be able to sort of look at how culturally we change in respect to that, not just as businesses and people, but as communities and countries. So,
what is that competitive edge that you refer to? So that's really interesting, because it's like anything. When we're building businesses and we're trying to go to market and everything, we're always looking at what's our uniqueness. And it strikes me that you've referred to it almost as a uniqueness because of the lack of equality, and that gives an edge in terms of your ability to execute.
It does, because when I rang people up or went and saw them, I'm Australian and I'm female. And so apart from the fact that it actually took me 10 times as long to prove my capability, it was really, really actually useful in being able to do that, because everything with the sort of empathy and compassion that I guess the feminine side of me brings, I was really after, how can I help these people be successful and achieve what they want and provide value? Just slightly different to, I guess, the masculine side of thing, because I do believe that we've got feminine and masculine inside each of us. I'm Julie. I'm not, Julie, just a female. And so everything for me has always been about helping people. I think sometimes when you sort of look at it, if you basically go, okay, I am different, then embrace that. Doesn't mean it's acceptable as a general rule, but it is what it is at the time, and it's changing all the time. But I also enjoy working with men. I think they add a different flavour, and I think if we actually look at totally different cultures and different people who are completely different to us, we learn way more and end up with a way better result than working with people who are all the same as, where we go, yes, 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 all the time, when in fact that's actually just creating a norm but not an exceptional result.
Has it made you work in a different way or work harder because of the massive delta between how many women in the industry and how many men are in the industry? Like as in, if you were in a female-dominated industry, would you have the same work ethos because of the perceived niche that you don't have in a different industry?
Interesting question. I think you're correct, because it gives you sort of an edge where you can actually add your sort of feminist flavour to what's happening in a male-dominated industry. If I was in a female-dominated industry, then I don't know, because I've never actually worked in one. So I think it would be interesting to see if I would actually act any different. But ultimately, my goal is to be authentic to myself and own my own personal brand and be true to that. And at the end of the day, that's what I would do in any industry.
Yeah, sure. So, Christine, Microsoft have been quite heavy in the press about their drive to get a better equilibrium of women to men ratio inside of IT and increase the pay delta as well.
Yes.
How has that been from inside Microsoft and the work that Satya Nadella has done to help drive that? Because, I mean, he openly has made some faux pas comments in the public and rectified them, and now it looks like the increase of engineering talent from a female perspective is rising considerably. What's it been on the inside from the world's largest IT company?
Yeah, I consider myself very fortunate, actually, because, as you said, I've only been out of university for 4 years, and I fell into the tech industry without knowing that there was this disparity between males and females. So I was only made aware of it once I landed in Microsoft, but not actually experiencing it, if that makes sense, because I joined just after Satya had become CEO, and there was a huge push and emphasis on creating an authentic workplace where people's authentic selves are valued. From the inside, I consider myself very lucky because I haven't had to personally deal with it, but I've been made aware of it. And through being made aware of it, I've been able to be involved in initiatives. And obviously being young, even coming through university, I didn't do any STEM subjects. I did a business degree looking to get into business in the IT industry, but wasn't exposed to that gap within technology as well. I think it's a great environment and culture to be in where they're very aware of it. I think the communication and the why was really important. Initially, we had, it was quite funny, a Women in IT Day, or Women at Microsoft Day. And we all went, all the women got the email, and we all went for a beautiful day out on the viaduct, and it was brilliant from a woman's perspective. But the following day we got back, and all the men were like, "What did you guys do? Like, what was that? Like, is this?"
Well, we're going to go and play golf. So.
Totally, we're going to have our own men's day, and it really spoke to the fact that this, again, it's not about a metric. It's about, as you said, Julie, a diverse workforce, and enabling a platform for people to be authentic, to have their diverse way of thinking and provide that platform for them to do so. So I think what has worked really well is that communication, the why. Why are we doing this? It's for that exact reason. It's
amazing to see it from a global scale as well. I mean, 128,000 people from not just a transformation of what the Microsoft are doing, but sexual diversity and the demographic of the workforce is only one part of Satya's agenda, right? There's the whole transformation that's happening from shift from technology and culture, which is phenomenal to see, but that's a huge scale. And I think we've made some good strides, I think, over the last year at Umbrella to do the same. But down at the New Zealand scale of businesses, how's TIMG approached that?
What Freightways believes that women is not actually disadvantaged because we actually do quite a bit around diversity, inclusion, and that's one of our mission. Moving forward, hire more senior women in logistic and cloud or hosting or ICT, IT business. Yeah, so I believe all is the culture, the perception, not just women and men, it's around part of diversity too, religion, other things which comes in. So, yeah, I think we need to change that, and being that woman has actually came into workforce very late, historically about 1970, That's why male has been dominating in this industry, not just as in IT, but in all workforces and stuff.
Right,
So globally, our stats in women in IT tech jobs are very, very less. And looking at the stats around 1980s, we actually have women stats going down even now, according to UK stats, that it's very less than what it was in 1980s. I believe if we change the perception, the thinking, allow and motivate and give chance to women to actually be able to take that leadership role and make that change, and we would not have to worry about it. So I think it's the diversity, inclusion we need to make sure we need to.
But at a senior level, if you look across some of the largest companies and most progressive companies in technology, and I don't mean what we work in, but if you look at just in space travel, right, for example, so the president of SpaceX is a woman, COO at Facebook and Google are women. There are some significantly high-level executives, and I think the diversity at the executive level is actually far more diverse than probably down into the whole of the workforce. I don't know whether that's because it's a motion to kind of drive the diversity down from a mandate perspective, and it's been recognised at board level that we need to go that through. But it's very common to have the white, pale, stale, male acronym thrown around across specifically board members across the whole of the Western world. So I think there's some really good movements inside of the workforce. I think at an executive level it's really strong. I think the actual board members are undergoing change as well, which will happen over the next 15 or 20 years. But the question I've got for you guys is, working inside the industry, what can we do more of? There are a lot of people listening to this podcast that will be leaders of businesses and run companies where they've got quite a diverse workforce or trying to get diversity into the workforce. What's the one single thing that these leaders can do more of to encourage and drive not just female diversity, but also all types of diversity within inside of their companies?
Well, I think that they need to actually give chance to everybody. So I think a change around thinking all together. Yep. Since we're talking about women, I think women should be given quite a bit of leadership roles and senior roles in the company to be able to make that change. And I believe women is more caring, more innovative and challenging around growing the business. But it just gives that level of balance. So I think hiring more women.
It does become quite progressive, right, in terms of and not that I try and live by this mantra, but you kind of employ people who are like you because you see the goodness in them and because they're like you, right? If everyone's male who's recruiting, they're generally going to have an unconscious bias. Because that's the thing, right? Unconscious biases exist. It's not a...
So I'm very happy and fortunate that TIMG in sales team is about 80% of female, and which is really good. Yep. But then now our goal is to actually hire more male because we want to have that balance.
Got it.
So that's exactly come to the bottom line of having the diversity at workplace.
Yeah. And what about you, Christine? So there's been a lot of initiatives at Microsoft. Is there anything more Satcha can do, or any advice that you've seen Satcha deploy Microsoft that other people listening would go, yeah, that's a good way to drive diversity across the workforce?
Yeah, I think it started with our mission statement, really, to empower every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. And Satcha has been very clear that the way to do that is to bring initiatives. What I like about Satcha is his empowerment for the field. He has these beautiful ideas and they cascade as appropriate within the regions and within the countries, and you feel empowered to actually drive those initiatives. I think what's important is to be the change, which I believe he's doing, in his leadership team as well. He communicates clearly, which resonates down to all of us, and he gets involved. What I think has become quite prevalent, and again, I can only speak to the APAC and the New Zealand region in terms of what I've been exposed to. As you said, diversity is far wider than just women. It's religion, it's Māori and Pacifica, it's Gleam, it's accessibility, and especially with the accessibility piece, where he's had a huge push in terms of allowing an accessible workplace. I mean, accessibility is not just a physical disability, mental, everything. I think he's done a very good job of addressing the women, but also showing how that piece fits within the puzzle. I think locally, if I could speak to locally, what I'd like to see in terms of leaders driving this change is, first of all, being the change, getting involved. So do have lots of initiatives, in such as STEM and the likes, but spend time with young Māori and Pacifica children. What are their problems? Accessibility, we've got, I think the employment is maybe 26%. It's really low. Spend time with these people, get to understand what their challenges are and how you can facilitate what you have control of to provide this platform for not only employment but just allowing this diversity and this cultural shift.
It's really fascinating to hear that. And the reason it's fascinating is that there's a very fine line as an employer between the talent that you want to bring into your organisation to drive towards your mission statement, the availability of the talent, the unconscious bias that drives, and then also consciously not going too biased the opposite way. If, for example, and to your point, businesses recruiting for a sales team to balance the gender equality within the team, we actually can't do that. That's not something we can do. We're employing based on talent and credentials and the ability to facilitate the job. But the available talent in the market that's coming forward for these roles is predominantly male orientated. Therefore, it does drive that balance. It's a really fine line, and one that we can actively pursue, but also one that you can't actually just rule out for recruiting men or recruiting a certain kind of classification of diversity, but to try and address the balance. And it was everything you're saying is absolutely resonating, but it always coming down to one thing: is who's the appropriate person to do the role that you need to drive your business.
That's
business
absolutely
forward.
correct. Yeah.
So Julie, what are your thoughts? We're together. Driving the business forward with the mission, how we're going. You're accountable for delivering to the business on that. But what more? I'm kind of looking at what I can do more because I can influence that. So what more can I do to drive forward?
Yeah, just a bit of context, I think, because I do think we've come quite a long way. If you consider it's just over 100 years ago where women couldn't vote, so we hadn't experienced that. But it's just impossible today to think that had happened. In Australia, there's basically 40% of women actually earn more money than men, and they've got more female entrepreneurs in Australia than they have men. So I think we've also got the scenario, how do we support the men when they become house husbands and, going to the sort of women's play group and things like this. So it's that type of scenario because we're bringing families up. Generally, women have been that person, which is why their career paths, sort of halted, and then they've come back into the workplace, which potentially means they felt like I've got to go into this role which is lower than my capability, or women, generally speaking, accept roles that they know they can 100% do, as opposed to 80% do, which is sort of what men do. With regards to Umbrella, I think there's definitely an embracement of diversity and a respect for each person as an individual, giving that autonomy to the individual to be able to execute the role. And the leadership responsibility, I think, is to appreciate the capability of each of the individuals within the business, irrespective of whether they're female, male, etc., how that aligns to the mission and the purpose of the business, contributing from an education perspective to creating mastery, because if each of the cogs in the wheel contributing to the total purpose of the organisation, which is, helping New Zealand businesses be brilliant with the Microsoft cloud, then ultimately everyone in the business, from finance to operations to sales to marketing to HR, should be all aligned to that vision. And alongside that, partners that we're working with and the customers that we have, we want to make sure that ongoing we're providing that support and capability to deliver that with technology to basically achieve that type of result. So
I find this whole topic fascinating because equalities are a very contextual dynamic that actually because of where we're born and the size of us and weight and strength and gender, illness and genes, and there's a whole load of things to go in. We're actually physically it's impossible to be all equal, but all with the same size, same shape, same IQ, the whole thing. It's impossible. Yet there is a constant strive for equality, which is the right thing ethically to do. And it's good that you're seeing that kind of play out, but that's why we're all different, and that's why we all have strength. That's why some people are great at sales and some people are great at marketing and some people are great at finance, because we are all different, and embracing that is key. Do you guys ever think there'll be a day where we get to total equality within our industry and any other industries? Can you see that day?
Not in my lifetime, probably. Well, my life. Maybe my great-grandchildren would probably see that. Because where I come from, Fiji Islands, actually, is still way behind. And women are supposed to actually be looking after families and not working and things like that. Accessibility, and as Christine says, is nowhere seen in industries in Fiji. So coming back here for me, is a little bit step up in how we embrace the change and the diversity, inclusion and stuff. I think one day, if we actually think differently and embrace that change and be welcoming for every kind of diversity, we will come back saying that we are equal in all side of things, right? Not just men and women, not just IT jobs. So any sector, any industries will have the balance. So hopefully one day we just need to rock and roll every day.
Christine, do you think the day that you'll see 50% male, 50% female at Microsoft, will that ever happen?
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think it will.
Yep.
There's such a heavy push around it right now. I believe I will see it. To your point, maybe not globally, but in terms of New Zealand at Microsoft, I do see it. And to your point before, I think it's about providing equal opportunity.
Yep.
And I believe we'll get to a platform where we, through all the initiatives through STEM, I know Microsoft doing a lot of work with Be Accessible, who's our thought leader or subject matter expert in allowing our accessibility arm to be built, so that we, to your point before, have a diverse pool that includes accessible people, people with disabilities, to allow for that accessibility is what I should say. So I'm really optimistic. I think in terms of New Zealand and Microsoft, we will see that.
New Zealand has paved the way in a few of these parts, right, because of our ability to adapt and be quick.
Agile.
Also, the demographic of the Microsoft New Zealand footprint is less engineering heavy.
That's a very good point.
I mean, Redmond would be a different scenario.
That's a very good point. We're almost at 50-50 in terms of, we're a sales and marketing organisation, as you've said, and yes, I think it's 49-51.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's okay. That's move a few people around. That's done.
And maybe that's in terms of that's in terms of male and female. In terms of pay disparity, I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah. No, that's a totally different
Should we have the pay discussion?
Not between me and Julie, we won't.
But one last comment. The pale, you've raised pale male stale, whatever that is. I actually hate that term.
Yeah, same.
I think whenever I hear it, it's totally speaking to everything we're trying not to be.
Yep.
And I still hear it. Like, I mean, today this is the forum to raise it. But when women say it as well, I mean, it's
a pretty derogatory approach.
It's derogatory, it's prejudiced, it's stereotyping. We have to be very conscious that we're not, in trying to push these initiatives, creating our own subconscious biases in doing that. So
totally. Yeah. Because you're right. The pendulum swings all the way to one side, which is all board members are white pale stale males, right? Which is not true. Totally not true.
And they worked hard to be there because that was the forum they were in. It's not their fault that they, and then Julie's had a very successful career. Again, it's just the landscape's changing, and it's not people's fault that they're in the positions they're in now. We're looking forward to drive change so that equal opportunity exists going forward, regardless of who anyone is.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing as a kind of sentiments coming out of this is actually more about equal opportunity versus equilibrium. Yes. We're not really looking for equality.
Completely agree.
It's equal opportunity.
Yeah, equal opportunity is where we will get to. I definitely think equality. Not 100% sure on that, but I think it's everybody's choice in their personal mindset, and whether they look at things in a positive, problem-solving, how do I fix this opportunistic way, or whether they go, oh, poor me, blah, 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 I'm not good enough, I'll let myself get run down. I mean, if you look at what's Gloria Rayner's I Will Survive, women have that survive mentality as opposed to I will thrive. And it's sort of going, okay, how can I thrive? I'm bringing up a family. I want to be successful. I want to be respected with what I'm doing at work. And then I do all these other community things, etc. It's sort of just looking at your own life and going, well, how do I embrace where it is now? How do I support what it can look like in the future? And to me, that's what we've got to look at is, we always want progress, but progress comes, from internal mindset. And, I think technology is going to be a really great enabler for all of us to get to that equal opportunity point.
Fascinating topic, and I think we've covered some significant ground, and this is one of the topics I think we can literally talk about for the next 3 hours. Zabeen, congratulations on your accolade for Women in ICT Award.
Thank you very much.
I imagine that you'll probably be on there again this year, which would be good.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Fully expect Christine, Julie and Shavar to also be in that, and Yaz as well. We'll get everybody involved. But that's a big recognition across the industry. Fingers crossed, one day we won't need to have
celebrate that.
ICT Awards. Julie, thank you very much for your time. Great insight as ever. Christine, thank you for joining us from your own personal and giving some insights into Microsoft perspective.
Thank you.
And for all of you listening online, you've been listening to the Umbrella podcast. Please subscribe, please like, please share. See you on the next episode.
Awesome.
See you
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thank you.